In this edition of Back in History, we take you back in time to the events that characterized the third military coup in Nigeria. The third military coup was the coup that saw to the emergence of Murtala Mohammed as the new head of state and the removal of Yakubu Gowon from office. Welcome to this edition of Back in History. The coup occurred on July 29, 1975. Coincidentally, Gowon's predecessor, Johnson Aguiyi Ironsi, was also removed from office on the same date, July 29, in 1966. Gowon had departed Nigeria to attend the summit of the Organization of African Unity in Kampala, Uganda, in his capacity as head of state of Nigeria. While there, he received the news that his government had been overthrown at home in a military coup executed by some senior military officers, most of whom were his friends. The news of his overthrow was broken to the world by then Colonel Joseph Garba, who took to the radio station and announced as follows: "Fellow countrymen and women, I, Colonel Joseph Nanven Garba, in consultation with my colleagues, do hereby declare that in view of what has been happening in our country in the past few months, the Nigerian Armed Forces decided to effect a change of the leadership of the federal military government. As from now, General Yakubu Gowon ceases to be the head of the federal military government and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria. The general public is advised to be calm and to go about their lawful duties." Unquote. Joseph Garba and Gowon were close friends. They were both from the present-day Plateau State. Garba was an active participant in the July 1966 coup, which saw to the overthrow of Ironsi and the eventual enthronement of Yakubu Gowon. Joseph Garba served as the commander of the Guards Brigade, an elite army unit saddled with the responsibility of providing security to General Yakubu Gowon. Garba was thus a stakeholder in the Yakubu Gowon administration. It was thus surprising to many that the overthrow of Gowon was announced by his close friend Garba. Gowon was the longest serving military head of state in Nigeria, having served for almost 9 years before his eventual overthrow. But Joseph Garba gave his reasons for the overthrow of Gowon, and one of the reasons was that Gowon did not make any meaningful progress in his promise to return the country to democratic rule. Gowon kept changing the transition date, and this did not go down well with the military. Garba's role as an insider in the Gowon administration was to ensure that the coup was bloodless, and indeed, the overthrow of Yakubu Gowon was without the spilling of any blood. The said overthrow was the most peaceful and seamless coup out of several coups in Nigeria. As the radio announcement continued, Nigerians began to know the names of the new military leaders of the country. Brigadier Murtala Mohammed was announced as the new head of state, while Brigadier Olusegun Obasanjo was announced as the deputy head of state. Shortly before his appointment, Murtala Mohammed was the Inspector of Communications for the Nigerian Armed Forces. Brigadier T.Y. Danjuma was named the Chief of Army Staff, while Commodore Michael Adelanwa was named Chief of Naval Staff, and Alhaji MD Yusuf was named the Inspector General of Police. A dusk-to-dawn curfew was imposed until further notice. Airports and border crossings were closed, and the Lagos airport was surrounded by soldiers while armed personnel carriers patrolled the environs. Following this chain of events, General Yakubu Gowon effectively lost control of Nigeria. In a video captured on the date of the overthrow of Gowon, a video which has gone viral, Yakubu Gowon is sighted in Kampala, sitting comfortably at the front row of the meeting hall at the summit ground. He is seen wearing a white flowing Hausa native wear, otherwise known as babariga, and clad in a cap to match his dressing. While in the hall, Gowon appeared oblivious of the events at home. A few seconds into the video, a Nigerian official who might have been in Kampala in Gowon's delegation is seen passing a piece of paper to Gowon. Gowon opens the paper, reads it, and forces a smile from his face. It is obvious from the video that the message in the paper was simple: "Sir, your government has been overthrown at home." Gowon appeared initially unperturbed in the video. He maintains his seat and maintains his calm. But a few seconds after, Gowon is seen leaving his seat and whispering to a man who is suspected to be the then president of Uganda, Idi Amin. He then heads towards the exit door, perhaps to make some contacts and confirm the story and decide on his next line of action. On stepping out of the hall, Gowon is confronted by journalists from leading media houses, asking him his reaction to the news of the coup in Nigeria. Gowon responded in quite a terse manner to the questions, while planning to grant an elaborate interview later on. Gowon stayed back in Kampala and did not immediately leave. 2 days from the takeover, Gowon made his position known at an international press conference held in Kampala. He recognized the new government and pledged his loyalty to the new government in Nigeria. In his words at the press conference, unquote, "Ladies and gentlemen of the press, this is a statement by me on the situation in Nigeria. From all indication, a new government has been established in Nigeria. I wish to state that I, on my part, have also accepted the change and pledged my full loyalty to my nation, to my country, and the new government. Therefore, in the overall interest of the nation and our beloved country, I appeal to all concerned to cooperate fully with the new government and ensure the preservation of peace, unity, and the stability of our dear motherland. As a Nigerian, I am prepared to serve my country in any capacity which my country may consider appropriate. I am a professional soldier and I can do any duty which I am called upon to do. May I take this opportunity to thank all the people of Nigeria and friends of Nigeria for the support and cooperation that you all gave me during my tenure of office, and call upon you all to give the new government of our nation the same support and cooperation in the interest of our beloved country. Long live one united, happy, and prosperous Nigeria. Long live the Organization of African Unity. According to Shakespeare, all the world is a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their entrances and their exits. I wish you the best of luck. Please pray and look after Nigeria for me." Unquote. Gowon then left to the United Kingdom and took admission as a student of political science in the University of Warwick and read up to a Ph.D. in the discipline. Gowon later lectured political science in the University of Jos, Nigeria in the 80s. It would appear that Gowon had a feeling at some point that his government may be overthrown, and thus Gowon had relocated his wife and children to the United Kingdom before leaving to Kampala. In an interview which Gowon later granted to the Harvard Center for Public Leadership in August 2008, Gowon reaffirmed that following the overthrow, he pledged loyalty to the new government and wished them the best in their administration of the country. Born in October 1934, Yakubu Gowon became the youngest head of state in Africa when he took over the reins of power in 1966. At that time, he was barely 32 years old. He went on to govern Nigeria for almost 9 years. During his tenure, the Biafran-Nigerian Civil War broke, and the responsibility of restoring peace and keeping his country one fell squarely on the shoulders of the young Yakubu Gowon. The war lasted for 3 years, and when the Biafran forces were eventually conquered, Gowon accepted the surrendering of the Biafran forces and made the popular "No victor, no vanquish" speech and followed it up with an amnesty for those who had participated in the Biafran War, as well as a program of reconciliation, reconstruction, and rehabilitation to repair the extensive damage done to the country and the infrastructure of the country by the war. Gowon was born in Garang in Plateau State, but brought up in Zaria, about 200 meters from his ancestral home. He attended St. Bartholomew School, Wusasa, and then moved to the government secondary school Zaria. He then decided to join the army. Gowon, in his interview with the Harvard Center for Public Leadership, said that he initially did not want to join the army, that he wanted to become a teacher. That he later went for the selection interview for the army when he realized that about 11 of his classmates had left to attend the interview for recruitment into the army. Gowon said he was the last person to arrive at the selection interview, but was the only person selected from among his classmates. He joined the army on 24 May 1954. He then went on to attend a couple of military schools, including the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, Staff College Kimberley, United Kingdom, and the Joint Staff College Latima. He was commissioned to the rank of second lieutenant for the Nigerian Army at the very young age of 21. After the war, Gowon continued in leadership and appeared to have been lost in it, with no sign of possible handover to a civilian administration, despite calls for return to civil rule. Gowon kept promising that he would soon hand over power to the civilian administration. Gowon had promised to unfailingly hand over power in 1976. But on 1st October 1974, to the surprise of many, Gowon announced that Nigeria was not ready for civilian administration and that the handover date would be postponed indefinitely. This announcement did not go down well in the country and caused a spark in students' protests across the universities in Nigeria, with students demanding an immediate end to military rule. Labor unions also protested across the country. The eventual overthrow of Gowon by his key men and close allies was also an indication that the military in their ranks were not happy with the continued stay in power of General Yakubu Gowon. Yakubu Gowon was thus overthrown to pave way for the administration of the country by another military head of state. Murtala Mohammed thus took over the administration of the country and appointed military governors and created more states in the country. He started the idea of construction of the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja. He did many other things for the country, but unfortunately his tenure only lasted for 200 days as he was assassinated at a traffic point by soldiers led by Colonel Buka Sukademka. Murtala was buried in the Islamic way, and following his assassination and burial, the administration of the country was taken over by his deputy Olusegun Obasanjo. Yakubu Gowon has grown in age and has become an elder statesman in Nigeria, offering advice to successive governments in the country. Thank you very much for watching this edition of Back in History, and don't remember to subscribe to the channel for regular notifications.